Good morning, my amazing children. This is Grandma Carla, and I am back with more of Pippi Longstocking. And today we're reading chapter 5. Pippi sits on the gate and climbs a tree. Outside Villa Vellicula sat Pippi, Tommy, and Annika. Pippi was sitting on one of the gate posts, and Annika was on the other, while Tommy was sitting on the gate itself. It was a warm and beautiful day in late August. A pear tree that stood very close to the gate stretched its branches so far down that the children could sit there and pick the best little yellow and red August pears without much trouble at all. They munched and crunched, spitting the seeds out onto the road. Villa Vellicula stood just where the little town ended and the countryside began, and where the street turned into a country road. The people in the little town were very fond of taking a stroll out towards Villa Vellicula because that was the prettiest area of all. Just as the children were sitting there eating pears, a girl came walking down the road from town. When she caught sight of the children, she stopped and she asked, "Have you seen my papa go past?" Said Pippi. "What does he look like? Does he have blue eyes?" "Yes," said the girl. "About average height, not too tall, not too short?" "Yes," said the girl. "A black hat and black shoes?" "Yes, that's right," said the girl eagerly. "Nope, we haven't seen him," said Pippi firmly. The girl looked disappointed and started off without another word. "Wait a minute," Pippi called after her. "Is he bald?" "No, he is certainly not," said the girl angrily. "Lucky for him," said Pippi as she spit out a seed. The girl was now in a hurry to leave, but then Pippi shouted, "Does he have unnaturally big ears that reach all the way down to his shoulders?" "No," said the girl, turning around in surprise. "Surely you don't mean that you've seen a man walk past here with big ears like that?" "I've never seen anyone walk with his ears," said Pippi. "Everyone I know walks with his feet." "Ugh, how stupid you are! I mean, have you really seen a man with such big ears?" "Well, no," said Pippi. "Nobody has big ears like that. That would be absurd. And how would it look? Nobody should have ears as big as that, at least not in this country," she added after giving it some thought. "In China, things are a little different, you know. I once saw a Chinese man in Shanghai. His ears were so big that he used them for a cloak. Whenever it rained, he would just crawl in under his ears, and that was the warmest and best place to be. Although it wasn't so nice for his ears, of course. If the weather was especially bad, he used to invite his friends and acquaintances to camp out under his ears. There they would sit, singing their melancholy songs until the storm had passed. They were all very fond of him because of his ears. Hai Sheng was his name. You should have seen Hai Sheng dashing off to work in the morning. He would always come running at the last minute because he was so fond of sleeping late in the morning, and you can't imagine how sweet it looked when he came rushing up with his ears fluttering behind him like two big yellow sails." The girl had stopped and was standing there with her mouth open listening to Pippi. And Tommy and Annika had lost interest in eating more pears. They were too busy listening to the story. "He had more children than he could count, and the youngest one was named Peter," said Pippi. "Oh, but a Chinese child can't be called Peter," Tommy objected. That was exactly what his wife told him. "A Chinese child can't be called Peter," she said, but Hai Sheng was terribly stubborn, and he said that either the child should be named Peter or nothing at all, and then he sat down in a corner and pulled his ears over his head and sulked. So his poor wife had to give in, of course, and the boy was named Peter. "Really?" said Annika. "He was the most troublesome child in all of Shanghai," Pippi went on. "He was so fussy about his food that he made his mama very unhappy. Now, you do know that they eat birds' nests in China, don't you? So there sat his mama with a whole plate of birds' nests trying to feed him. 'All right, little Peter,' she said, 'let's eat a bird's nest for Papa.' But Peter just pressed his lips together and shook his head. Finally, Hai Sheng got so mad at his son that he said no new food would be cooked for Peter until he ate a bird's nest for Papa. And when Hai Sheng said something, that was how it had to be. That same bird's nest went back and forth from the kitchen from May till October. On the 14th of July, Peter's mama begged to be allowed to give him a couple of something else, but Hai Sheng said no. Nonsense, said the girl on the road. Yes, that's exactly what Hai Sheng said, Pippi went on. Nonsense, he said. It's obvious that the boy could eat a bird's nest if he would only stop being so stubborn. But Peter just pressed his lips together the whole time, from May until October. But how could he stay alive? Asked Tommy in astonishment. He couldn't stay alive, said Pippi. He died from pure stubbornness on the 18th of October, but he was buried on the 19th. On the 20th, a swallow came flying through the window and laid eggs in the bird's nest that was sitting on the table. So at least it was put to good use. No harm done, said Pippi merrily. Then she gazed thoughtfully at the girl who was standing there looking bewildered. You've certainly got an odd look on your face, said Pippi. What's the matter? Surely you don't think I'm sitting here telling lies, do you? Excuse me? Just tell me if that's what you think, said Pippi ominously as she pushed up her sleeves. No, not at all, said the girl, sounding scared. I wouldn't exactly say you were lying, but... You wouldn't, huh, said Pippi. Well, that's precisely what I am doing. I'm lying so much that my tongue has turned black. Can't you tell? Do you really think that a boy could live without food from May till October? All right, I know he could manage without food for 3 or 4 months or so, but from May to October, that's just plain nonsense. Surely you realize that it has to be a lie. You really shouldn't believe everything everybody tells you. Then the girl took off. She didn't turn around again. Some people really are gullible, Pippi said to Tommy and Annika. From May till October. How stupid can you be? Then she yelled after the girl, No, we haven't seen your papa. We haven't seen a single bald man in all day long. But yesterday, 17 of them went by, arm in arm. Pippi's garden was truly delightful. It was not well kept, no, it wasn't. But it had glorious lawns that were never mowed and old rose bushes full of white and yellow and pink roses. They may not have been particularly elegant, of course, but they had such a lovely scent. A good many fruit trees grew there too. And best of all, several ancient oak and elm trees that were perfect for climbing. Tommy and Annika's garden had very few climbing trees, and their mother was always so afraid that they would fall and hurt themselves. That's why they hadn't done much climbing so far. But now, Pippi said, why don't we climb that oak tree over there? Tommy instantly jumped down from the gate, delighted at the suggestion. Annika was a bit more cautious, but when she saw that there were big burls sticking out of the trunk that could be used as steps, she too thought it would be fun to try. A couple of yards above the ground, the oak split into two. Right at the spot where it split, there was a small, flat space. It didn't take long before all 3 children were sitting up there. Above their heads, the oak spread out its crown like a green roof. This would be a good place to drink coffee, said Pippi. I'll just run into the house and make us a pot. Tommy and Annika clapped their hands and shouted, Yippee! It didn't take long before Pippi had the coffee already. She had baked rolls the day before. She took up a position at the foot of the oak tree and started tossing up coffee cups. Tommy and Annika caught them, but sometimes it was the oak that caught them, and 2 coffee cups broke. Pippi ran back to the house for more. Then it was the rolls' turn, and for a long time there was a shower of rolls in the air. At least they didn't break. Finally, Pippi climbed up, holding the coffee pot in one hand. She also brought cream in a little bottle and sugar in a little box. Tommy and Annika thought that coffee had never tasted so good before. They weren't allowed to drink coffee every day, only when they were invited out. And now they had been invited out. Annika spilled a little coffee on her lap. At first it was hot and wet, and then it was cold and wet, but Annika said that it didn't matter. So here are some pictures. Let's look at them. First of all, here was the picture of the pear tree that they were sitting in at the beginning of this chapter. And then here is a picture of the bird coming in and sitting on the bird's nest that they were trying to feed the little Chinese boy Peter in Pippi's tall tale. And then here are the coffee cups flying up into the tree. Down here you can see Pippi throwing the coffee cups up into the tree where Peter and Annika are sitting. Not Peter, Tommy and Annika are sitting. Peter was the little Chinese boy, wasn't he? When they were finished, Pippi tossed the cups down to the lawn. "I want to see if the china they make these days is very sturdy," she said. Strangely enough, one cup and all 3 plates survived intact. The coffee pot lost only its spout. Then Pippi decided to climb a little higher up the tree. "Have you ever seen such a thing?" she shouted suddenly. "This tree is hollow." There was a big hole in the trunk. The leaves had hidden it from the children's view. "Oh, I can climb up and see it too," said Tommy, but there was no answer. "Pippi, where are you?" he shouted uneasily. Then they heard Pippi's voice, but it wasn't coming from above. It was far below. It sounded as if it came from underground. "I'm inside the tree. It's hollow all the way down to the ground. If I peek through a little crack, I can see the coffee pot lying on the ground outside." "But how are you going to get back up?" cried Annika. "I'm never getting back up," said Pippi. "I'm going to stay here until I retire, and you'll have to drop food down to me through the hole from up above, 5 or 6 times a day." Annika started to cry. "Why weep and moan?" said Pippi. "The 2 of you should come down here with me. Then we can pretend that we're languishing away in a dungeon." "Not on your life," said Annika, and for safety's sake she climbed down from the tree altogether. "Annika, I can see you through the crack," cried Pippi. "Don't step on the coffee pot. It's a nice old coffee pot that has never done anyone any harm. It's not the pot's fault that it doesn't have a spout anymore." Annika went over to the tree trunk, and through a little crack she could see the very tip of Pippi's index finger. This made her feel a whole lot better, but still she was worried. "Pippi, is it really true that you can't get back up?" she asked. Pippi's finger disappeared, and it didn't take even a minute before her face was sticking out of the hole high up in the tree. "Maybe I can if I really try," she said as she pushed aside the leaves with her hands. "Is it that easy to climb back up?" said Tommy, who was still up in the tree. "Then I want to try going down inside and languishing for a while." "All right," said Pippi, "but I think we should get a ladder." She crawled her way out of the hole and quickly slid down to the ground. Then she ran to get a ladder, which she lugged up into the tree and lowered down into the hole. Tommy couldn't wait to try it out. It was quite difficult to climb up to the hole because it was high up, but Tommy was brave, and he wasn't afraid to climb down inside the dark tree trunk either. Annika watched him disappear, and she really wondered if she would ever see him again. She tried peeking through the crack. And here is a picture of the tree, and then peeping through the crack was Pippi's eyeball. "Annika," she heard Tommy's voice say, "you wouldn't believe how wonderful it is in here. You really have to come inside too. It's not the least bit dangerous if you use a ladder. Once you try it, you won't want to do anything else." "Are you sure?" said Annika. "Absolutely," said Tommy. So with trembling legs, Annika climbed back up the tree, and Pippi helped her with the last difficult part. She shrank back a bit when she saw how dark it was inside the trunk, but Pippi held her hand and encouraged her. "Don't be scared, Annika," she heard Tommy say from below. "I can see your legs now, and I'll be sure to catch you if you fall." But Annika didn't fall. She climbed down to Tommy safe and sound, and Pippi followed a moment later. "Isn't this great?" said Tommy, and Annika had to agree. It wasn't nearly as dark as she thought, because light was coming in through the crack. Annika went over to see if she too could see the coffee pot on the grass outside. "This will be our hiding place," said Tommy. "No one will ever know we're in here. And if they go around outside looking for us, we'll be able to watch them through the crack, and then we'll laugh." He could see a little twig and poke it through the crack and tickle them. "And Pippi," said Pippi, "then they'll think the tree is haunted." At this thought, the children were so happy that they all hugged each other. And then they heard the gong ringing, which meant that Tommy and Annika had to go home to dinner. "How stupid," said Tommy. "We have to go home now. But we'll come back tomorrow as soon as we get home from school." "Do that," said Pippi. And then they all climbed up the ladder. First Pippi, then Annika, and last of all Tommy. And then they climbed down from the tree. First Pippi, then Annika, and last of all Tommy. There's a picture of the little coffee pot that was in the grass, and it no longer has a spout because Pippi threw it down from the ground. And that is the end of chapter 5 of Pippi Longstocking. I hope you're enjoying this book as much as I am. This was a childhood favorite of mine. And my childhood was a long, 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 long time ago. And this is Grandma Carla, and I love you.